All right, so we just covered the Greek styles of temples that were used and that the Romans drew from when they built their temples. Now we're going to talk about the Etruscans. The Romans obviously were very connected with the Etruscans because they are just north. Here's Rome down here. Etruria extends all the way up to here. So they're very close to the Etruscans. And their major centers of contact were through the cities of Tarquinia, right here, Carrhae here, and Veii here. And the Romans were in and about the area of Etruria off and on between 396 and 294 BCE. And they finally captured Veii in 294, although there's obviously uprisings of different types throughout the whole time. So it's not a fully settled place until easily the 1st century BCE with the general Sulla. We're also going to be mentioning places Merlot and Orvieto, and also Chiusi, which was a major center between Merlot and Orvieto, and then even further south. And we get to start talking about the early Etruscan temples at my site of Poggio Civitate. We have strong reason to believe that Poggio Civitate has one of the earliest Etruscan temples known. This was an image sketched by a good friend of mine, Mike Murphy. I like it a lot because it shows the sacrifice happening down here with the dead goat. But it shows a reconstruction of what we were working on in 2008 with this temple structure. And it looks very different from the rectangular temples of the Greeks. But it does have a lot of influences. You'll notice that it doesn't have, the Greeks, if you were looking at those maps, has one area for the gods. Sometimes it has a back room, but that's not where the god is, or the goddess. The back room is typically storage. Here, we have 3 different entrances. And this is a picture showing that middle area. This is where that middle door would have led into. The door would have been about here. 3 entrances because for some reason the Etruscans worship their gods and goddesses in tripartite, and we see that come over into the Romans through the worship of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva. All right. If we go on, this is an aerial photograph of the site. We took this on. We had fun with a hot air balloon. Or a helium balloon doing this. And it's kind of hard to see because there's a whole jumble of stones, but running roughly here, here, and here, and then the front edge is about here, the back edge is about there, is that the foundations of this early Etruscan temple with its 3 cellas. Remember the Latin word cella can mean room or cubicle, can mean prison cell. It also is the religious term we use to describe where the gods and goddesses are housed in a temple. So this picture right here, you can see right here. This is where we're talking about. So this 3-cella part is very important to the Romans. Here in Orvieto, in the 5th century BCE, we have the Belvedere Temple. Belvedere is the cardinal that funded the excavations. Now this one also has 3 cellas, which we'll be able to see in a minute in the plans, but it's important to see this one because it shows the emphasis on the frontal space. Now the temple at Poggio Civitate also emphasized that frontal space. We found right through here, right through here, my bad, right through here we found pits for deposits of wine and olive oil and what we think was burnt animal offerings. And it's very much focused on the frontality here, through here, because we believe the entrance was on this side because of this weird plaster thing, which we think was a step, or part of a step. Yes, thank you. There we go. So in the 5th century BCE, so the Poggio Civitate was in the 7th century BCE. 5th century, we start to see more heavy stone masonry. That one, the Poggia Civitate was made of mud brick. This was made up of stone. And we also start to see the use of columns in the beginning, in the front of it. Here we have the bases of these columns. And you can see the 3 cellas, very rudimentary, but based on the fragments of the foundations, we know there were 3 there. And there's this emphasis in Etruscan temples on the front space. Now with Greek temples, you could go all the way around it. There was no different entrance. There was no difference between any of the sides. There was 2 entrances typically. You could walk up all the stairs. But the Etruscans, it's focused on the front, right? And it's part of because of their auguries. So remember, the augur is a type of priest that makes predictions based on birds. But it also, he makes these predictions by creating a square in the sky. And so the front of these temples is supposed to aid that square making ability. And so it's the front that becomes very important to the Etruscans, and then subsequently the Romans. We go further south, we go to Tarquinia. So this is looking from the cemetery of Tarquinia to where the town used to be. It's kind of funny. The cemetery is now where the modern town is, and the Etruscan town is farmland. It's a weird dichotomy, weird change. The cemetery was between the town and the sea as a protection from enemy raids. But that's off topic. Look at that, you guys aren't even here. I'm getting off topic. Anyways, in Tarquinia, there were the remains of the Ara della Regina. Now, we're not really sure who this deity was for. The Italians called it the altar of the queen. When they first found it, obviously we've discovered now that it's a temple, but that's how it was first identified. And this is a 4th century BCE structure. Right here is the 4th century BCE. This is the development of it. And you again can see the earlier ones have only 1 cella. The later 2 have these 3. There's an emphasis on the front. There's only 1 entrance in. It's very different on the front. The front is very different from the sides. And there's this emphasis on that front part of the temple. Here are the remains of it today, and this is what was on top of it, a statue group of horses. So you see all these temples being built in Etruria, and they eventually get brought into Rome. Now remember, in mythology, the historical mythology, the last 3 kings of Rome, Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, and then Tarquinius Superbus are Etruscan kings. And so this is that time period in the 6th century where Etruscan influences had gone further south, and they take these temple ideas, they take the temple of the Belvedere temple and the Ara della Regina, and they bring it with them into Rome. And so we see that come to fruition in the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the Jupiter biggest and greatest, which is a 6th century BCE structure. So it's even actually earlier than Ara della Regina. But the Ara della Regina shows nicely the types of the standard Etruscan temple. But you can see here there's an emphasis on the front. There's only 1 way to get up. There's these columns, which these go down the side, but not. We'll see not all Roman temples have columns down the side. And there's this this kind of heavy open space up here, which is a very common thing in Etruscan temples and subsequently in the Roman ones. And so here we see the reconstruction of the Capitoline Hill showing the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. You can see the back wall here and the emphasis on the front. We're going to talk more about this structure later, but I just want to show you that this is very much an Etruscan temple being used in Rome. I didn't put on my next slideshow, you'll see a floor plan of it, and you'll see there's 3 cells. The middle one for Jupiter, the side 2 for Juno and Minerva. And then we end with Santa Onobono Sanctuary, which is another 6th century sanctuary to both Fortuna and Mater Matua, that shows that has an emphasis on the front, but also these wonderful terracotta decorations, which we have found in all sorts of Etruscan sites. You saw it here at Ara della Regina, and then if we go back all the way to the beginning, you can see these terracotta acroteria lining the roof of the temple at Poggio Civitate. So we see a lot of Etruscan influences being put on into Roman temples. And we will return to these two, Temple of Jupiter and Sant'Onobono Sanctuary, next time when we talk about the early temples of Rome. But we're just going to end now with a general characteristics of what we find in temples that get taken over to the Romans. So from the Greeks, there's the Greek superstructures. So the Greek columns, the Greek marble statues eventually become a standard for the Romans, along with the use of marble or marble-like stone. And then we see the column types come over, the Ionic and the Corinthian columns. The Etruscans, we get the emphasis on the frontality and one set of stairs. We get the augural space, the space where the augur takes his readings in the sky. The high podium and the deep porch. The Greeks had a very narrow porch and they had a very low podium. One thing that both, and the Etruscans, which isn't listed here, have the terracotta decorations, which are also very important to the Romans. Both of them have an emphasis for high locations. The Temple of Jupiter is obviously on a hill, and there's a bunch of temples on a hill, just like the Acropolis, and the Belvedere Temple. And also sculptural decorations, although the Greeks use marble while the Etruscans are using terracotta. And so those are the general characteristics that we see and how we see them taken from the Greeks and from the Etruscans and then get melded together in the Roman temples. So next time in class, we are going to be talking about early Republican temples and the temples in the Forum and the Forum Borarium. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me, or you can write them down and just bring them to class. I'm sure there'll be some questions, and that's great. So feel free to bring them to me, and I will see you guys later. Thanks.